look at the participation of nutrition stakeholders in the implementation of Agenda 2063. And so that is going to be the focus for today's discussion. Now, if we look at the vision for the African Union, it is to have an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. Now, we are all gathered here. What do we want to see within Africa? Is this the type of Africa that we want, that we are seeing? And I hope that at the end of this presentation, we can decide as to whether the Agenda 2023 is indeed a strategic framework for socio-economic transformation for the continent in the next 50 years, whether it will build on and seek to accelerate the implementation of past and existing continental initiatives for growth and sustainable development. We all want to be in a continent where there is collaboration. We want to be in a continent where there are things moving on in tandem, things moving on quite well. And again, why Agenda 2063? We all know that in a changing global environment within the African context, we need to build on what NEPAD has experienced. We also need a strong and well-functioning regional institution in which the Agenda 2063 can stand strong. It has renewed investments, opportunities, and global interest in Africa that we need to capitalize on. And we see that there is a lot of interest and the focus and the spotlight on Africa. How can we work in Africa to bring them to be a par with our continental neighbors? There is a more unified, united, and strong Africa today than previously that requires a long-term strategy to move forward. And that is what the Agenda 2063 seeks to do. There are various frameworks that are being in existence. We know of the Lagos Plan of Action, we know of the Abuja Treaty, we know of the NEPAD initiative, we know of various other initiatives, and my colleague has just talked about the ANEC process. So what is the overall process and approach for Agenda 2063? Is to have stakeholder consultations, and there have been a lot of stakeholder consultations that have been going on between the private sector, academia, civil society networks. We have women, youth, media, we have the RECs, and I'm quite pleased to know that there are quite a number of RECs. COMESA, we're supposed to get proof from the West Africa Health Organization here. We have proof from EXA, who are also represented here in partnership to try to see how we can keep on having the consultations, and the technical processes have been initiated to review national plans and continental frameworks. There have also been other studies in the area of finance, transformation, and blue economy, and other areas. All with a view to popularization, to have a communication strategy, the creation and the maintenance of a website for the Agenda 2063. Bulletins have gone on. There have been radio, press, and TV initiatives, as well as the social media, all to try and conduct a process to bring it for the Agenda 2063. Now, in doing this, the view is to look at what the vision is, what is the transformational framework, and the plan. And so all the 50 years coming forth to 2063 have been categorized into 10-year segments, or 5 10-year segments. And we're going to look at what those segments are. So the Agenda 2063 framework document, looking at the transformational framework, there's a popular version, I'm sure it's on their site, and I will focus on the first 10-year implementation plan. Now, within the 10-year implementation plan, what is the African inspiration? They've got from the consultations, they've got 7 aspirations to have a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, to have an integrated continent that is politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision for African Renaissance, an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, and to have a peaceful and secure Africa, an Africa that has a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. An Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of the African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. An Africa that is strong, united, resilient, and an influential global player and partner. So these are the aspirations within the first 10 years for the Agenda 2063. Okay. I've been cautioned to slow down. In my grace to do this in 15 minutes, I didn't realize that we had interpreters who were also needed to interpret. My sincere apologies. So, the Agenda 2063 has got different segments, and that is all incorporated into a constitutive act within the African Union vision. And there are seven areas that we are focusing on. In having a prosperous Africa, what does it mean? It means to have a high standard of living, where there can be income, jobs, education, transforming economies, not only that, looking at an economic growth. And that is an aspiration for having a prosperous Africa. Then, bringing about political unity and an integrated continent. A continent that seeks to work together would mean that there has to be a politically driven, united Africa, free movement of people, where there can be goods and services moved across the continent. Not only that, there is also the initiative to have good governance, human rights, justice, and the rule of law. In doing this, we have a universal principles of human rights, justice, and a capable developmental state. And not only that, also a peaceful and secure Africa. And that would mean that we would have issues on security and stability, and having a capable nation that is at peace with herself and with her neighbors. Then we also have a strong cultural identity of values and ethics. And all this forms the aspirations, which means that there will be the development that is people-driven for this continent, which will therefore talk about equal opportunities, participation of women and the youth in all of these developmental areas. Then we have a strong and influential global player and partner. Africa must come to the table. Africa must be seen as having a good bargaining power in calling the shots for its people. So, how is the implementation going to be like? This will be implemented along 3 layers, from national to continental level. At the national level, they will be responsible for the implementation of the key activities under the Agenda 2063. At the regional levels, we have the REX. It's Rosemary here. I believe Rosemary is here, from COMESA and various other people who are from the various regional economic commissions, and they will adapt the agenda 2063 result framework to regional peculiarities. There are differences across regions, but they will adopt it and facilitate coordinated implementation by member states and develop, implement, and monitor, as well as evaluate the framework at the regional level. Eventually, at the continental level, it is hoped that the African Union organs, especially the African Union Commission, will be responsible for setting the broad results framework and broad monitoring and evaluation based on inputs from the regional economic communities. Now, what are the key critical success factors? Now, for the Agenda 2063 to succeed within the first 10 years, it is anticipated that the leadership and political commitment would be in place with transformation and visionary qualities. It is also anticipated that there will be participation, inclusion, and empowerment of citizens and all stakeholders in the Agenda 2063. All hands must be on deck to revitalize and strategize planning, working towards the ideals for which the next 50 years have been set, with Africa taking charge of this global narrative to ensure that it reflects continental realities, aspirations, and its priorities. What it also means that there will be a capable developmental states with appropriate institutions, policies, human resources systems, and processes. This indeed will be a results-based approach with concrete targets that are measurable and that can be tracked and monitored. And all this have been put in place. However, there are risks, there are threats, and there are mitigating strategies which they recognize. And some of these are the conflict and the instability and insecurity that we see dotted around the continent. There will be social and economic inequalities, without a doubt. There will be organized crimes, drugs, trade, and illicit financial flows. We know that there will be various others, like failure to harness demographic dividends, escalation of African disease burden, there will be climate risk and natural disasters. There will be external shocks caused by global markets. And all of these challenges we say can be overcome if the stakeholders work diligently together. And that is very important. The key is that all stakeholders must work diligently to move the agenda forward. And so we have this project that are in place, which I will not permit you to look at. To make it happen, we have to look at the principles, the stakeholder relationships, which means that this must happen at national, regional, and continental levels, and all stakeholders must be linked into the timelines. So we're saying that the Agenda 2063 and the MSD, the Sustainable Development Goals, must plug into the AU vision, look into the 7 aspirations that I talked about. We have the goals and the priority areas that have been set up, and also look at the Sustainable Development Goals and how these can be achieved, both at the social, economic, sustainable, political, the cultural, and other levels, all plugging in. So the various national agendas would have to plug in to the 50-year plan that has been set, looking at the first 10 years to try and make this a reality. Now, of interest to me, particularly for this meeting, is to see how the Agenda 2063 and the nutrition linkages tie in. Now, the Agenda 2063 has ranked nutrition linkages as very high, and it has a dedicated goal on nutrition among its 20 goals in Africa's quest for socio-economic transformation over the next 50 years, specifically under Aspiration 1 of having a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. We have the goal 3, which is a healthy and well-nourished citizens. Now, when you compare this to the SDGs, you can see that the Agenda 2063 has placed nutrition high on its agenda. The resolve framework for the first 10 years is to try and reduce malnutrition at the 2013 levels of prevalence by 50% by the year 2023. And that is an ambitious target. Reduce stunting by 10%. And they'll be judged by these targets. Also looking at Aspiration 1 of having a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. What it means is that incomes, jobs, and employment, the expected rise in those incomes are critical for improving nutritional standards. Social security and protection, providing nutritional support for the vulnerable group, the vulnerable people within our communities. Then we come to Aspiration 3 again. An Africa of good governance, democracy, justice, and respect for the rule of law. And I'm sure FAO and various other people have talked about the right to food as a human right. Aspiration 4 talks about a peaceful and secure Africa. What it means is that farming, civil strife are commonly commingled with poor nutrition prevalent among displaced populations, especially among women, children, and older people. Aspiration 5 also talks about Africa with a strong cultural identity, common values, and ethics. And then we look at aspiration 6, where Africa's whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of the African people, especially its women, youth, and the caring children. We say that Africa is like a sleeping giant, and we will rise up, and if we begin to work together, it is possible to make this happen. So what are the ways by which you, as nutritionists, me as a nutritionist, can contribute to the Agenda 2063? Domestication of the Agenda 2063 is a process to integrate the results framework, looking at the goals, the priorities, the areas, and the targets for the first 10 years by getting member states within the medium term to try, hoping that by 2017, all countries would have initiated the process that has been set in place. And so it is important for us nutritionists to take part in the national level domestication processes. Regional level, African nutritionists must also develop a plan of action on how to take forward goal 3. Other stakeholders have done so. Cultural heritage institutions for aspiration 5, and nutritionists must come onto the table and not sit down and look, but we must be involved in moving the nutrition agenda forward. So, within the ABC, there is partnership with African statisticians, with various other stakeholders. The African Development Bank is taking the lead on this, NEPA is taking the lead on this. But the emphasis for this slide is that African nutritionists should get involved in this process and help develop the indicators by which countries can measure progress in nutrition and build this into the accountability framework for Agenda 2063. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Soto, for your usual passionate presentation. Unfortunately, I've just been told we have 5 minutes. We should not do justice to this rich presentation, but we can only start and hopefully we can continue in the corridors talking to each other on this topic. It's so dark here, I can't see any hands. There's one way, okay.
Oui, je vais poser une question au professeur Marocaine. Les orateurs vont exposer et ma question va au professeur Marocaine. Donc, il concerne la consommation du sel. En effet, nous avons réalisé une enquête au niveau du Maroc et qui a concerné les différentes régions, également la région saharienne. Et dans cette région, nous avons noté qu'il y a beaucoup de croyances que le sel n'a pas d'effet sur la santé, premièrement, et que les gens qui mangent, même qui sont en surconsommation du sel, ils se portent bien, et ceci, ils vont le transmettre à leurs enfants, et ils pensent que c'est le climat qui fait ça. Pourquoi je pose cette question? Parce que ça va concerner un petit peu toute la partie subsaharienne de l'Afrique. Et je demande au professeur Grégoire qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire, qu'est-ce qu'il a des conseils à nous donner. Merci.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? And can they be brief? We only have 5 minutes.
But a big amount of effort needs to be done to make each sector understand what the other can offer. Because you did talk about synergy, but synergy will not happen if the health does not know what agriculture can give it, and what agriculture does not know is this information that makes them hesitant of working together.
I was presenting, he said that nutrition appears to be an offer. I want to suggest that for this partnership, nutrition, health, and agriculture, there needs to be a coordinating body, so that it's not a question of bringing nutrition into agriculture or bringing nutrition into health. But that coordinating body should ensure partnership, equal ownership of what is going on. Then the first presenter talked about how to reduce sugar and salt, and he did not talk much about soft drink. I want to say that for us to reduce soft drink intake, we can go through the schools by banning pupils from coming to school with soft drinks. We've already started this in Nigeria and it is working. That will help them build good foundation for adequate dietary intake. Catch them young. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just give
the historical background where this white liqueur is the only known preservative very important to industrialization. And that's something you've got to overcome. Remember, blood pressure is the silent killer. You don't know what your blood pressure is until you drop dead of a heart attack, heart failure, or stroke. And that's the message. Salt puts it up. So that's the message you've got to get across. Salt is a long-term chronic poison that's slowly killing you. Any other idea is totally wrong.
Thank you very much, Professor. The sectors need to work together in partnership. And the agricultural sector must be willing to learn from the nutrition sector, and the health sector must be willing to learn and also provide information to the agricultural sector. So they must be partners to move things forward.
Yeah, and just to add to us, under the whole process, scaling up nutrition movement, countries in Africa that have adhered to the scaling up nutrition movement, we are encouraging them to put nutrition at the highest political level, either the Prime Minister's office or the President's office. This then allows these high-level, top political institutions to convene the different sectors and clarify their roles, but also make them mutually accountable when it comes to the results that they're generating. So under this intersectoral process, I think that now in Africa, through the scaling up nutrition movement, countries are working together to ensure that nutrition is prioritized. Because if you take the Agenda 2063, we are engaging parliamentarians to understand that they need to put in place a legislative framework to ensure that instruments are produced to ensure that nutrition is underlying the human right, fundamental human right of food security. Nutrition is embedded in national constitutions, but also they put in place an enabling environment for all the different sectors to be able to work together. Currently in Egypt, there's a meeting by the Pan-African Parliament, and we are establishing what we are calling the Pan-African Alliance, Pan-African Parliamentary Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition, to really drive this process, because we cannot achieve our objective under the Malabo Declaration to reduce stunting to below 10% and underweight to below 5%. If we continue to do business as usual, we need to change the paradigm and we need to engage everybody in the process.
Just a quick one. This is a problem not only at national level, but also at continental level. And I heard a person speak at the AU in Addis, and he was saying that it is important that lessons that are learned in COMESA, for example, in East Africa or in South Africa, can be shared with our colleagues in West Africa about how they have managed to successfully work on intersectoral collaboration. So these things must run through from national right up to continental level. And it is very, very important. I don't want to belabor it.
Okay, what's left for me is to thank our panelists who did an excellent job of hopefully stimulating thinking beyond this workshop, beyond this conference. I just want to thank you very much. Can we give them a hand of applause?
that's why it attracted our votes for lunch today. So,
just to complete the information, so instead please of going out, because the boxes are already ready, just have a seat, the boxes are going to get in, you will get your box. And the people who are outside in Kanyat will put their boxes on the chairs. Please, we can take opportunity of this a few minutes to speculate or ask any more questions. Thank you very much.
And also, FAO has some.
Présenter leur témoignage sur l'anthropologie de la santé au niveau de leur pays respectifs.